The man who put Americans on the moon was also responsible for the death of tens of thousands of people. The American government knew, they hired him. This is that story. Welcome to History I Just Learned, the husband and wife duo learning about history as we go and discovering the human lessons behind it. My name is Sergio.
And I'm Saida.
Sweetie, have you ever had someone in your life that you look up to and then found out they were not who you thought they were?
Yes, I actually do. As you know, I come from a divorced family. So before my parents got divorced, my family was normal. So my parents, as the safe place that every child has, so they pretty much dragged us into their divorce. And we saw a side of them that we did not know. And as a kid, you have your parents as you have them in a pedestal because you learn from them. You see them as your authority. It's like you see them as like if you have a problem, you go to them. But then for me, that wasn't the case during these times. For me, it was kind of like, who are these people? And why do I feel like I had to pick a side? So I don't quite understand why they would let us see that part of them. I mean, I know in certain situations we act in a certain way, but I still can, I don't get it. Like we were just kids. Like I have kids and I wouldn't let them see that side of me. What about you?
This episode that we're going to talk about hits a little bit different for me because of the history, because of what this history episode reminds me of. As I have said, I think I've started so many times the same way, but when I was growing up in a church community that I was part of, as I got older, something shifted in me. I didn't just want to believe what I'd been told, I wanted to know if it was true. I wanted to open my Bible and find out if what I have grown up to believe was real. In that season, I met a man who was one of the most important people in my faith journey, a mentor, someone who guided me through some of the deepest questions I had. He helped me understand doctrine. He helped me care about biblical truth. People around him recognized him as a genuine leader. And to me, he was an example of integrity, someone that I actually look up to. Years later, I came into the United States, I lost contact with him, and life moved forward. And then, when I was not expecting it, I started hearing things. He had left the church, the man who guided me toward the biblical truth that I know now, who debated with other leaders about doctrine, who have been passionate about God, had walked away from all of it. He gave into alcoholism. And with the drinking, something worse came, which was violence. He became a violent man. The man I knew as a role model became the source of danger in his home for his wife and his children. And the people who were supposed to be feeling the safest at home were the ones calling the police. At first, I did not know how to put these two people together in my mind. The man that I knew and the man that I was hearing about, they do not fit. Most of us have someone in our story, a parent, a coach, a mentor, a leader, whose influence shaped us in real life and lasting ways. Someone who we look up to, someone we build part of ourselves around. And most of us, at some point, find out that person was more complicated than we knew. And the version that existed behind closed doors were not always the same. And here's what I think most of us do: we pick a side. We either hold onto the good and pretend the rest did not happen, or we let the bad erase everything, including what was real. But there is a third option, a harder one. And it turns out the American government faced the exact same dilemma in 1945. A group of men who had done something terrible, they also had the knowledge and brilliance that was undeniable. And a decision about what to do with both at the same time was a struggle. They called it the Operation Paperclip. It is 1945. World War II is ending. Germany is in ruins, Hitler is dead. The Allied forces are moving through what remains of the country, collecting intelligence, securing territory, trying to understand what the Nazi regime has been building in the years before the collapse. What they find surprises them. The Germans have been developing weapons that are years, in some cases decades, ahead of anything the Allied forces have. Rockets, missiles, technology that neither the United States nor the Soviet Union fully understands yet. And the men who built that technology are still alive. A new conflict is already taking shape, the Cold War. The Soviet Union and the United States, allies just weeks ago, are now looking at each other across the divided Europe. Both sides understand that the next chapter of history will be won or lost in large part by science and technology. Both sides want German scientists. The Soviet Union moved quickly in their occupied zones, rounding up engineers and loading them on trucks headed east. The Americans have a more deliberate plan, a secret one. They call it Operation Paperclip. Here is what Operation Paperclip actually is: a program approved at the highest levels of the United States governments to bring over 1,000 German scientists and engineers to America. Their wartime records go investigated. No tribunal, not honest accounting of what they did or who they served during the war. They were recruited before any of that. Their files are reviewed and then quietly altered. Membership in the Nazi Party is noted and then removed from the official record. SS officer ranks disappear from the record. Evidence of involvement in programs that used concentration camp prisoners as forced labor is set aside. Men whose records should have disqualified them from ever entering the country are reclassified. Their paperwork is cleaned up and they are brought to America. The name paperclip comes from the paperclips used to attach the new altered documents to the scientist files. The reasoning inside the government is cold and practical. The Cold War is beginning. The Soviet Union is doing the same thing on the other side. America cannot afford to fall behind. Winning the future matters more than settling the past. Justice can wait. But the reality is, for most of these men, justice never comes at all. The most valuable German scientist, the man America wants more than any other, is a tall, charming German engineer who has spent nearly his entire adult life chasing one dream. His name is Werner von Braun, and his story is one of the most complicated in the history of the 20th century. Werner von Braun grows up with one obsession: space. From the time he's a teenager in Germany, he wants to build rockets that can leave the Earth. He reads everything he can find on the subject. He teaches himself advanced mathematics because he needs it to understand the science. He joins amateur rocket clubs. He runs experiments. He is the kind of person who cannot imagine spending his life on anything else. The dream is at the center of everything. But building rockets cost money, serious money. And in the 1930s Germany, the only institution with that kind of funding for rocket research is the military. Von Braun makes a deal. He will build rockets for the German army. They will fund his research and give him the resources he needs. He tells himself it is about the science, that the politics have nothing to do with it, that one day when the war is over, when all of this is behind them, those same rockets will carry human beings into space exactly the way he has always imagined. He joins the Nazi Party. He accepts a commission as an officer in the SS, the most feared branch of the Nazi military apparatus. He tells himself and others that these are formalities, that he has no real choice, that refusing would mean the end of his work and probably much worse. The rocket he built for the German military is called the V 2. It is the most advanced weapon of the war, a ballistic missile that travels hundreds of miles and delivers a massive warhead with almost no warning. There is no defense against it. You cannot see it coming. You cannot shoot it down. It simply arrives. More than 3,000 V 2s are launched at cities across Europe. Thousands of civilians die in their homes, on their streets, without any warning at all. But the weapon itself is not the worst part of the story. To build a V 2 at the scale the Nazi Party regime demands, they use slave labor. Tens of thousands of concentration camp prisoners are forced underground into tunnels carved from rock beneath a mountain in central Germany to assemble the rockets by hand. They work in brutal conditions. There is little light, the air is thick with dust and chemicals. They are given starvation rations. There is no proper medical care. Guards beat prisoners who slow down or make mistakes. Those suspected of sabotage are hanged in the tunnel assembling hall in front of other workers as a warning to everyone watching. The prisoners sleep in the tunnels. They eat there. Thousands of them die in these tunnels. More people die building the V 2 than are ever killed by it as a weapon. Von Braun visits those tunnels more than once. He requests workers from the camp to meet his production deadline. He sees the prisoners. He sees the conditions. He knows and understands what he's part of. He later says he's focused on the engineering, that the war gives him no real choice, that he's a scientist, not a soldier, not a political man, just trying to do his work. He keeps building his rockets. By early 1945, Von Braun can see which way the war is going. He makes a calculated decision. He's not going to surrender to the Soviets. He organizes his team, secures his most important documents and research, and moves them west toward the American lines. He understands that his knowledge is his protection, that what he knows is worth more to the right people than any crime he might have to answer for. He uses that understanding deliberately. When American soldiers make contact with him and his team, he makes his value clear immediately. He is the engineer behind the rocket program. He has the designs, the calculation, the expertise. He is ready to work. Under Operation Paperclip, he is brought to the United States. His Nazi Party membership is scrubbed from the official record. His SS rank disappears. The details of his visits to the tunnels, what he has seen, what he has requested, what he has known, do not follow him across the ocean. He is given a salary, a research facility, a comfortable home in Alabama. His family comes to join him. He learns English quickly and well. He becomes an American citizen. He gives public lectures and writes articles about the future of space travel. Over time, he becomes genuinely famous. Walt Disney hires him to appear in a television series about space exploration. Families across America sit in their living room and watch this warm, enthusiastic German engineer explain how human beings will one day leave the earth and walk on other worlds. Children are inspired by him. He becomes, in the public imagination, one of the great visionaries of the American century. While all of that is happening, the survivors of the tunnels go home to nothing. No salary, no laboratory, no second chance, no television appearance. Many of them spend years, in some cases the rest of their lives, trying to get someone to listen to what happened underground, to acknowledge at least what the prisoners endured while the rockets were being assembled. Most of the world is not paying attention. Von Braun is never charged with a crime, never tried, never formally asked to account for what happened in those tunnels, what it was happening. America has decided what he knows matters more than what he did. In 1960, Werner von Braun is appointed director of NASA's Rockets Development Center in Huntsville, Alabama. He is in his late 40s, and for the first time in his life, he is building rockets that are not weapons. Rockets whose only purpose is to leave the Earth. That dream is alive. When President Kennedy stands before Congress in 1961 and tells the world that America will land a man on the moon before the end of the decade, Von Braun is already at work on what that will require. The rocket he designs is called the Saturn V. If you heard our last episode, you know it well. 36 stories tall, 6 million pounds, the most powerful machine human beings have ever built. It remains to this day the most powerful rocket ever to carry human beings into space. Through the 1960s, Von Braun drives the program with everything he has. He is known for working long hours, for pushing his engineers hard, for refusing to accept that something cannot be done. The people who work with him describe a man who is completely alive inside his work, who has waited his whole life for exactly this. July 16, 1969, Kennedy Space Center, Florida. Werner von Braun stands in the firing room and watches the Saturn V lift off. 1 million people have gathered along the roads and beaches nearby. 650 million more are watching on television around the world. Von Braun watches the rocket, his rocket, clear the tower and climb into a clear Florida sky. 4 days later, Neil Armstrong steps on the surface of the moon. Mission control erupts. The world celebrates. Von Braun weeps. The dream he first imagined as a teenager, pointing a telescope at the sky, it has made it. Not on the rocket, but through it, because of it, because he refused, through everything, to let go of it. That is true. And so is everything that came before. Werner von Braun dies in 1977. He is 65 years old. He never stands trial. He never gives a full public accounting of what he saw in those tunnels or what he chose in the years when the rockets were being built on the backs of people who had no choice at all. In a handful of interviews near the end of his life, he acknowledges that the conditions at the labor camps were terrible. He never says more than that or goes any further. History does not agree on what to do with him. There are schools and streets and craters on the moon named after him. There are people who call him the father of space travel, the man who gives humanity the stars, who makes the impossible real, who inspires generations of engineers and explorers and dreamers. There are others who call him a war criminal who escapes justice because a government decides his expertise is worth more than the accountability for the people who died building his weapon. Both groups have the evidence on their side. Here is what is not disputed. Tens of thousands of human beings are worked to death in the underground tunnels to build his rockets while in Germany. He requests workers from the camp. He knows what is happening there. He says nothing that stops it. He keeps building. And the rocket he designed for NASA sends Neil Armstrong to the surface of the moon. A generation of children looks up to the sky on July 20th, 1969, and understand for the first time that the impossible is something worth attempting. The same hands, the same mind, the same man. And I'm not sure anyone who has looked honestly at this story has fully figured it out. But I think we are required to hold both things, not because it is comfortable, it is not, but because it is true. Because if we only remember the moon, we erase the tunnels, and the people who suffered and died in those tunnels deserve more than to be erased. And if we only remember the tunnels, we tell ourselves that history gives us a simple story, clean villains, obvious answers, and it almost never does. Most of the time, history hands us something much harder than that. A man who reaches the stars, and the people who pay for it with their lives. Both of those things are real. Sweetie, when you heard that America just erased these guys' records to bring them to America, what do you think?
What else are they hiding? What else do they have going on
Uh,
that we don't know about? Think about it. They erase his whole past. Like they give him a show and people didn't know who he was.
mhm.
Like how many of our heroes have an erased past?
Right. To answer the specific question, it bothers me because this is when we have to look back to the past. And there is this mentality or this behavior that I see in people. You should have done this, you should have done that. It doesn't solve anything because obviously anyone that makes a decision makes it based on the information that they have at the time and the stakes of the moment. We have this situation with Russia because remember, the Cold War is about to start and the Soviets are grabbing a bunch of people. So there is the moral aspect of it. And I get it. Yes, we should look back and say this is morally wrong. However, we need to look at it with the context and understand that it was the lesser of two evils. If you have Russia, a communist country, do and take everybody they can, that's gonna be a problem. But Von Braun goes into those tunnels. He sees what's happening. He keeps building. How do you even go through that idea?
To be honest, for me, I think for him it was more like killing two birds with one stone because as we saw, he was all for his research. So mind you, he joins the Nazi party and maybe he has the same mentality as they do. So he doesn't care about these people. So it's kind of like they're working for his research and he doesn't really care how they do it as long as, they get what he needs to get done. So I feel like he was kind of, he saw the opportunity and he took it.
Yeah. And we can just say the truth. He was a coward at the time. He might have a reason to be a coward. Maybe he was afraid for his own life, for his work, his family. If he said anything or pushed back. But I also think there is something else going on. I think this man was obsessed and he wanted to accomplish the dream of reaching the moon and the whole thing. And at some point, he didn't care how much it cost. And I think it just stops being about fear and it is now about obsession, which is darker. But think about the people who build the rockets in Germany. They go home to nothing. He, Von Braun, goes to Alabama, his home, with a salary and a TV career. How does that make you feel?
I think it's crazy because, like, yeah, he was super smart, but that still doesn't take away all he did. And it's like, I wonder how those people felt, like he's in Disney. He's on TV as looking as a hero when all these people that were building the tunnels that were being mistreated, they just go home without justice. That's crazy.
Could you imagine you survive those tunnels, you survive everything these people put you through, and then you turn on the TV and on into
Look, kids.
there is this man, hi, this is how you make a rocket. And he became an important voice in America. You see, so like I would say that life is incredibly awful at times.
It feels like a slap on the face for them.
Yeah. And not only that, he gets to accomplish his dream. He cried when Armstrong landed on the moon. Does that matter to you, or do you think it changes everything based on what we know now?
I feel conflicted because I feel like he's kind of seen like the villain hero that you see in movies that he has a dark past, but then he becomes good. I feel that they should have let him have his moment, woohoo, we go to the moon, but then also, held him accountable for what he did, in my opinion, because that still doesn't take away, that doesn't erase what he was part of in Germany.
Honestly, it is tainted for me. I feel conflicted just like you because I love what America was able to do. Reaching the moon, advancing human technology the way they did. But all of it traces back to Von Braun, to what he did. Both of those things are true simultaneously. And I'm not sure that they can be separate from one another. They don't stop being in tension with each other. So think about Bill Cosby. You have people that admire him and love his work and say what he did here is funny. And I grew up listening to Bill Cosby. I became a comedian because of Bill Cosby. He also did these terrible things to these women. That's a problem. But, sweetie, if someone in your life, someone who you care about, turn out to have caused serious harm to someone else, what do you do with what they gave you?
For me, I think I will stay with the good things that they gave me. But as far as relationship goes, I probably would like cut ties with them. Like I don't think the relationship would be the same.
Right.
And because it doesn't matter how good they were to me, I think at the end of the day we all had to be accountable over wrongdoings.
That's true. I would do the same thing. I would keep what was good and keep it separate. And I would not longer praise that person and hold them to the example that they were, regardless of who they became. But here's the thing. I consider if what they did was a good, was a valuable in and of itself. Because, brilliance comes from all kinds of places. They come from broken people, they come from complicated people. And we sometimes could be or do some of the things as well. We have family members, right? I know, we know family members that have done terrible things, and we are able to separate and say, I care about the good thing.
I think it's easy to forgive a family member or kind of, separate the two
Hmm.
than a stranger. Because you're easy to be like, nope, put him in jail. But when it's a family member, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to make that judgment.
I talked in the beginning of this episode about a man who shaped my faith, who helped me care about biblical truth, who I looked up to as an example of integrity, and who later I found out had become a violent and disreputable man. I did not throw away what he taught me because what he pointed me toward was truth, regardless of what he later became. The biblical truth he helped me see did not stop being true because he stopped living it. The impact he had on my faith was real. So was the harm he caused his family. Both things are true. What I learned is the wisdom I keep. What he did to his family, that deserved to be grieved, not ignored or excused. And I think this is what this episode is really asking of you. Not, was Van Braun a good man or a bad man? He did great things and he did evil things. Both are on the record. But the episode is asking something harder, something closer to home. Can you hold the full truth of a person, the good they gave and the harm they caused, without collapsing into one side or the other? And most importantly, look within your own life. Consider the power you carry as a human being. You can be the reason someone dreams and the reason someone suffers. That last thought is not just about one brand. It is not about my mentor. It's about every one of us. Every person in this room, every person listening right now has the capacity to build something in someone else, to point them toward truth, toward greatness, toward a version of themselves they could not have found alone. And every one of us has the capacity to cause harm, to leave a mark on someone that takes years to deal with. The question is not whether we are capable of both. We are. The question is what we do with that awareness. Do we carry it honestly, letting it make us more careful, more humble, more intentional about the weight we carry in the lives of the people around us? This is the kind of people I want us to be. People who take seriously the power they have to build someone up and to break someone down, and choose every single day to be the reason someone dreams, to be the reason someone chooses greatness. In 1945, America made a decision. Justice could wait. The future mattered more. In 1969, a rocket designed by a man with a deeply complicated past carried three human beings to the moon. Both of those things are true, and neither one erased the other. Werner von Braun was the reason a generation of children looked up to the sky and believed that the impossible was worth attempting. He was also the reason thousands of people died in an underground tunnel, whose name we will never know. The same hands, the same man. History does not always give us the luxury of clean stories, but it does give us the truth if we're willing to hold all of it. And the truth about every human being, including you, including me, is that we carry the same duality, the capacity to be someone's reason to believe, to do great things, and the capacity to cause harm. So let's take it seriously. Let's be intentional with the people in our lives, with what we teach, what we model for them, what we leave behind for them, because you can be the reason someone dreams. Thank you for listening to History I Just Learned. If this episode meant something to you, share with someone who needs to hear it this week. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.